Barrenechea, 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 Barrenechea. Important that we get this right. Barrenechea. All the way through because we know what's going to happen. Doing an episode, you can't even say his name right. Enzo Barrenechea, 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 Barrenechea. Are we going to get this wrong, aren't we? Enzo Barrenechea. Say it once, call him Enzo all the way through. Right.
Mortimer, Shaw, looking at to adventure down the left. There's a drop ball coming in for Tony Molling. Oh yeah!
Welcome back to the Villains, a brand new Aston Villa channel, and on today's episode we're going to be talking about Enzo Barrenechea, a player on loan from Aston Villa at Valencia who's having a wonderful season, and the football tacticos out there are waxing lyrical about Enzo Barrenechea. Barrenechea, 23-year-old from Villa Maria in Argentina. We know someone else who loves the Villa and has that Villa connection, and it's the gaffer Unai Emery, who decided to send Enzo Barrenechea on loan for his development. And I think loan spells can be very important for players. We see a loan spell from Manchester United. Marcus Rashford want him just out of their club. Are they really bothered about his development? Kind of. They want him to do well. They've already agreed a fee in principle with Aston Villa around 40 million. So whether that goes well or not, that fee will be there. And I fully expect Rashford to leave Manchester United. But a player like Enzo Barrenechea for Aston Villa has different options, and Villa will be looking to get the best out of Barrenechea for him to be able to develop, grow, hone his skills, play well, and give Villa, Monchi, Emery a decision to make. And on this episode, we're going to explore how well Enzo Barrenechea is doing at Valencia, but we're also going to explore the possibilities that are going to happen with Enzo come the end of this loan spell and the big decision that Villa are going to have to make. We know that Aston Villa last summer had PSR problems, and Enzo Barrenechea was one of those players that was bought in with that Douglas Luiz deal, and on paper it looked a pretty good deal for Villa for this exact scenario. Sell Douglas Luiz, get a fee, bring in two players, Ealing Jr. and Barrenechea, and then you're going to be able to make profit on players that you brought in for minimal fees. So Enzo Barrenechea, I noticed I just said his name wrong there, but Enzo Barrenechea will become a hot property for Villa, whether he stays or whether he goes. So we're going to explore the whole big picture there, and we'll come to a conclusion at the end of where we think we are set. But Enzo Barrenechea is doing fantastically well at Valencia. Enzo Barrenechea first started to make waves on the football scene when he joined Juventus and when he was part of the next gen side. We've got a quote from one of his coaches that talk about his capabilities of what a player he can become, but from the early age that most coaches knew that Enzo was going to be a player. He's a boy because he is still a boy, already weaned and trained, mentally and physically he developed, and the potential he has from birth. I have no doubt that it will be important for Juventus squad. He will have no problem because he has a lot of mental strength and he wants more and more. I have no doubt he will prove it in Europe, and that's coming from Carlos Polenta. A defensive midfielder that's able to pick up the ball and spray passes. His ability to play long cross-field passes are absolutely impeccable. He's got that nailed down, he's got the vision, he's got the awareness, And he's also got the execution to be able to do that. He's brilliant at receiving the ball in central midfield when pressured. He's got an adaptation with his body. He can drop shoulders, he can roll, he can go, he can pop off. And he's just got that awareness in central midfield that allows him to look quite silky, very smooth, in control of what he's about to do. His passing ability to keep the ball ticking over, to keep the ball moving, but also his aerial ability in the air, winning those aerial duels, winning those tackles, stopping those shots going in, stopping those passes, breaking up play, and then enabling his own team, once he's retrieved the ball, to play a long crossfield ball for one of his strikers to be able to score. He's also got that ability to pick the ball up and be able to drive at the opposition as well. And this is all in a team that under Corberan, who he has transformed, and he has changed their form because they were scrambling around the relegation zone in La Liga. Enzo Barrenechea is the player and the key and the cog that is enabling them to have more control, to have more dominance, to be more resolute. And he's a player that I am very, very looking forward to seeing across future years, hopefully at Villa, but also wherever he goes as well. He's a player that just looks happy and comfortable at doing some of the things that you don't really want to be able to do on a football pitch, but he seems to be able to enjoy it and want to take control of games as well. He's also his big ability, and I think it's something that we should all remember now is very, very important in football. It's being able to scan, to look around, to spot what's around you, map the picture of the football pitch within your mind, and then that enables you to be able to take that touch, be able to roll that opponent, and that gives you the edge. Modern day football now, scanning is so, so important. And it also shows that he's got the tactical and technical awareness on the football pitch to be able to thrive. So he's a player that I've been massively impressed with. And when we're talking earlier about players going out on loan, developing, getting better, honing in their skills, it's something absolutely fantastic. Now, we've spoke about Enzo and his ability. I've given my thoughts on what I've seen from Enzo this season. But I think when you start exploring the numbers and start looking at the actual data behind the player, you start to paint your own picture that then merges with the picture that you've kind of mapped out with your eyes as well. In football, I analyse footballing in two different ways. And this is how I analyse Aston Villa. This is how I look at Villa on how we're performing. I watch the game. You get a good understanding about what's happening when you're watching the game, and you have an understanding of how your team's playing. And I think in football, how I watch Villa, and when I'm watching from the Holt end, I very rarely, sometimes watch the player with the ball. I'm more interested of what's happening when a player hasn't got the ball. So I'll explain what I mean. So for example, we could be in a defensive action and the ball could be with a left-sided player that's going to be moving across that back line and go to your right back. Soon as that ball hits the right back, my eyes go on to the right winger, central midfielders and left-sided winger, because I want to see how this picture's opened up. I want to see how it's been mapped out. Where's the players running to? Where's this player that's got the ball going to pass the ball to? And that's how I start watching Aston Villa and seeing how we're playing. And then I paint the picture of how's the shape of the team looking? How are the opposition pressing us? Are we going to be able to get out? And then we find out whether the patterns are, during that 90 minutes are coming into fruition. Are we doing the things that I want to see us doing? Are we getting into the right areas? Are gaps starting to open up? Are players making those runs? Can we find those players with those runs? So the eye test of what you're seeing from a player is very, very important. Then once you get back home and you start looking at average positions, passing networks, individual performances, you start to see the numbers behind a given player's performance. And when you're looking at a player like Enzo, and when I'm watching him on the pitch and I'm seeing him break up play, I'm seeing him doing long crossfield passes, I'm seeing him win those aerial duels, I'm seeing his passing accuracy looking pretty good and being really tidy, then I want to start number crunching and see what his numbers actually look like. So we're going to go through some of his numbers here now, and these numbers are coming from per 90s, but also the percentile of that player across the top 5 leagues in Europe as well. So it's really important to see whether those numbers look good, but where does that player rank within the rest of Europe, the rest of the top leagues as well. And then you can start to see what bracket is that player actually in. So some of Enzo's numbers from this season are as follows. Passes into the final third per 90 is at 5.68, and that's in the top 80%. Switches of play, he's having 0.69 per 90, and that's in the top 90%. Touches in the mid third, 42.18, that's in the top 84%. Aerials won, 61.2%, that's in the top 86%. Shots blocked per 90, 0.49, top 85%. Dribblers tackled, 57.8%, that's in the top 65%. Passes blocked, 0.45 per 90. Blocks, 1.43 per 90. Clearances, 1.84 per 90. A goal conversion rate of 10%. Passing accuracy per 90, 86%. Ball recoveries per 90, 3.9. And successful dribbles, 50%. So what we can see from Enzo Barrenechea at 23 years of age, he's ranking very, very highly in midfielders that are in and around his position. And that leads me to believe that he's going to the very, very top. He's going to be an unbelievable footballer. At Juventus, highly regarded, talked about a lot. Aston Villa came last summer. During pre-season, I thought he was really good. A lot of the things that I'm seeing during this season were the things that I was seeing in pre-season with Aston Villa. Very, very impressive player. Squad building is very important in modern day football. First 11s are a thing of the past. Aston Villa in 1981 won the league with just 14 players. That would be unheard of in the modern day game. 14 players are not enough with the amount of games, with the amount of games in a short space of time, with European football. Having a squad is vitally important. Having a squad with a first 11 and the rest on to the level of the first 11 is also not good enough. Having a squad of competitive players, one in, one out, that is just as good as the player that's been replaced, but also having a squad of different attributes for different occasions. Do you need to sit in? Do you need to be press resistant? Do you need to be good on the ball? Do you need to be aggressive? Are you going away in the Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, and you may have to suffer for a little bit? Do you need a player that's physical and good in the air? So having a player and lots of different players that offer lots of different things are really good, which leads me on to Unai Emery and his system moving into next season as well. Hopefully Aston Villa qualify for Europe next season. We're going to need players of very good quality. And I think Enzo Barrenechea would be able to do a lot of good things for Aston Villa if he stayed. Now, why he got sent on loan last season was because Unai didn't feel that he could give him sufficient amount of games to be able to play. his development would suffer. So what's good for the player is to allow them to move, allow them to grow and benefit. And I hope that Enzo Barrenechea can stay and be at Aston Villa next season. But here's the but. And I imagine a lot of you at home will be thinking the same thing that I'm about to say right now. We can all see that Enzo Barrenechea is a really good player. But where are Aston Villa going to be financially in the summer? And with PSR, with player trading, have we struck gold by bringing in a player who can come in, who we can send out on loan, who we can grow and nurture and develop to then move on for a big, big fee and big profit? Because Enzo Barrenechea would be valued, in my opinion, right now at around 25 to 30 million pounds. How important is that money to Aston Villa in the summer instead of losing a player that currently plays for Villa right now? And I think that's the situation that we are in. It's difficult to talk about because we're talking about a very, very good player here. But that picture in the summer of finances with Monchi, does he stay? Does he go? Who can we move on before we have to get to selling certain players? I think that's the key decision that we've got in the summer, because there's no doubting that we've got a very good player that could play for Aston Villa. I back him, I believe in him. I've seen enough to think that he can play for Villa to some capacity next season. So the decision is, what do we do with him? And that's the conundrum that we are in. But on this episode, I didn't just want to give my thoughts. I wanted to hear from a scout that has been watching Enzo Barrenechea for some time.
What I love about Enzo Barrenechea is just his understanding of the game, his spatial awareness, his understanding of the rhythm. He can set the rhythm, and just when he didn't start in midfield for Valencia, and you can absolutely see the difference. He's controlling the midfield. He's giving them a bit of bite off the ball. He's just all-round natural ability. His diverse skill set is his biggest asset. Apart from that, his spatial awareness is absolutely insane. So the most impressive thing about him is his football IQ, in my opinion. His ability on the ball, his composure. Just he's a player that sits in that number 6 role, and he's happy to receive at any angle, any under intense pressure. It's his ability to navigate tight spaces, but also facilitate from deep, forward playing, progressive the play, and switching the ball at the right times. He understands when to switch the ball, and just when his ball appreciation is exceptional. And that's one of the biggest assets, but he's got that little bit of, do you know in Argentina how they've always got that bite and that grit off the ball? He's got that. Sometimes he can be a little bit too rash, but I like that quality in him where he's got no fear and he can anticipate danger very, very well.
So what do you feel like he needs to improve on? Because obviously he's playing in La Liga in a team like Valencia that have been struggling. He's been the bright spark. If he does come back to Villa and play in the Premier League, what does he need to add to his game to be able to sort of go from La Liga to Premier League?
A bit of composure off the ball. And I think this is where Unai Emery does his best work, where he coaches bad habits out of a player. And one of his bad habits is picking up needless yellow cards because he's so eager to win the ball back. He's so good at anticipating the play, but sometimes he's a little bit too aggressive, a little bit too rash. He likes to dive in, and that's something that he just needs to control, because against better players in the Premier League that's got a better speed of thought, they can knock the ball around them a lot easier than what they can in Spain, in my opinion. So that's just one element of his game that he does need to improve on. But his game does, I'm not saying he's a finished article, does need a lot of refinements, but the elements and the ability and the profile is all there.
See, Villa have got sort of like a plethora of at midfield options in Kamara, Barkley, Onana, Tielemans, McGinn. Do you feel like he could eventually break into that midfield?
He's got all the elements that Unai Emery likes. Grittiness off the ball. He's aggressive. He's good at anticipating play, but he's got absolute quality in possession. But what I like about him is he's very disciplined. The best number 6 don't go crazy and run around the pitch. I always say this, they're smart in what they do, and they're like an unsung hero in the team, and I think that's what Unai Emery likes. And I think the way Aston Villa play when they get like Morgan Rogers bombing on and Jacob Ramsey, they need that number 6 just to be disciplined and be there for defensive transitions. So I do absolutely think he's got the elements to break in this team. The only reason I think he might not is for PSR rules. And that's probably the only reason, because quality-wise, I absolutely do think he can. I actually think it's a really smart loan deal. And I actually do think, when you're looking at sign players and buy players, it's all about the profile of the player rather than the name. And I think there's a lot of similarities in what Barrenechea's got to what Kamara and Douglas Luiz has. So I actually think maybe he fell on this because you had to sell Douglas Luiz, but it's smart recruitment because although you had to sell, you've brought in somebody that's got a similar profile. So you're not really missing out, if that makes sense. Because it's not about the player, it's about the profile and what he can bring to your system. And I really do believe he's got the elements, the qualities that fit Unai Emery's system.
The insight there from Antonio was absolutely first class. So good. And I'm so happy that he took his time to come on the show and give his insights onto Enzo as well. So cheers, mate, for coming on the show. I remember when we signed Enzo and Samuel, I'm saying it as if I know them. I'm saying it as if they're my mates. But I remember at the time, and there was a lot of talk from Juve fans that Aston Villa got the better deal, 50 million, plus Samuel Ealing Jr., plus Enzo Barrenechea, that we would have had the best value out of that deal. And we may well see that value further down the line. But from everything that I've seen from Enzo this season, it gets me excited, guys, because central midfield is the central hub to any team. And having those players in there are so important with quality. And I think we've kind of seen it this season, that when Kamara's out, and because Onana and Barkley have been out as well, we've really lacked that option in there. And I think Enzo would have been able to do a really good thing for Aston Villa this season. So hopefully we get to see him in an Aston Villa shirt. I'd love to see him back at Villa. Maybe he'll get a good pre-season and we'll be able to think about it as well. But I really wanted to bring you this episode today to talk about Enzo, to talk about how good he's doing, to loan watch, to see the beauty of a loan. I think sometimes when you see players go on loan, you just think, oh, they're just going on loan, let's forget about them, we'll get them back and see what they do in a Villa shirt. But I've actually been really enjoying seeing him in a Valencia shirt. But I've also enjoyed seeing him in a situation where it's difficult. It's not easy. The loan spell's not easy. He's had to work hard. He's had to help the team get better and climb the table as well. So his development has been perfect for Villa. And I imagine that Emery, Monchi are always on the phone. They're always talking to him. They're always seeing how he's doing. Because there's that level of care. There's that level of family now at Aston Villa. With Vidagani, with Monchi, with Emery, you see the hugs. You see the feel-good factor in the tunnels after every game. And that's what we've harnessed here. It's not about just getting rid of people and forgetting about them. It's about remembering them while they're not here as well. And I think creating that sense of family, that unity, is a core principle within Aston Villa's psyche at the moment. And you can see it from the top to the bottom. You can see on deadline day when Monchi's thanking all the members of staff. And I think it's so important and it's so good to see, because we are one big family and we are all important in the same cog of Aston Villa as well. Villa fans, if you've got this far, I would like if you could please subscribe to the channel, smash the likes, comment your thoughts as well. Brand new channel, new concepts, new ideas, new delivery. Same good content, I think. Up the Villa.